Hello and welcome to Early Access of Battlefleet Engineer. Let's take a look at ship design and the ship editor. So the first concept to understand is that in Battlefleet Engineer, ships are completely made of modules. There is no hull or anything else defining the ship's characteristics, only the modules. So you basically start building your ships with a core, which is a module in itself, and then you build up by adding generators that produce electricity, thrusters that move the ship, weapons to fire at the enemy, armor to protect it, and so on. All the movement is also physics-based, so the placement of thrusters is critical to the performance of your ship's movement. Okay, so in the Fleet and Ship Editor, you can start a new design by taking any of the existing designs that come with the game, or you have already created, and then adding it to this design surface. It's best to, if you want to create a new design, the logical point is to add the core only ship and then start from there. So select it and then edit ship. This goes to the ship editor mode. Here you get new set of tabs that are different from the fleet editing UI, and the first one is the module browser. Through this you can see all the available module types. In Battlefleet Engineer there aren't many variants of the same module type, and what I mean by that is that you have some thrusters and some different armors, but mostly the modules provide unique function. For example, we have one generator type that produces electricity, and then we have one capacitor which stores electricity, and then we have a couple different thrusters and a couple different armor pieces. But then again we have one type of shield generator and few different weapons which are very different from each other. Okay, so to add modules, click on the type you want, or you can hold the tab key and click on existing module to copy it. This also copies any module options you have set in that module. Okay, so you start with the core. You need the core itself provides some electricity. You can see that it consumes 3 electricity and creates 4, so there's 1 extra, and it can also store electricity. It also has function of reaction wheel, which means that it can make the ship rotate without making it move. This is so that you can create very small ships without having to add so many thrusters for different types of movement. Okay, so every ship must have at least one core. You can have multiple ones, but only one of them will be active at the time, or act as the active core. All modules need to be connected to the core through connections, and most of these basic modules provide connections on all sides. You can see these white dots where you can add modules, but there are some limitations, like thrusters. When you place a thruster, you cannot add modules to this side, and this applies to any length. So you cannot have thrusters inside the ship. This is a design choice that requires your ship designs to have some weak points. You cannot hide all your critical systems behind many layers of armor and shields. Shields don't have such limitation, they can be put anywhere, and also these turret weapons can be put anywhere on your ship. But then we also have these fixed projectile weapons that do not turn, they shoot one way. You need to turn the ship to align them with the target. And they have the same limitation, you cannot add anything here. But these are actually pretty tough by themselves. And here you can see the created resources and the basic statistics. At the top you also see the ship cost, so as value, and change from the state when you enter this ship editing mode. Okay, so every ship has a resource system that distributes created resources to storage and modules that require them. Currently there are only few resources, which are electricity, which is the main one, and heat, which you want to get rid of, and also rocket fuel for these powerful chemical thrusters, which you cannot create during the battle, but you can have extra storage. These also come with some storage by themselves. Most of these modules that use electricity consume 1 unit. So the generators create 1 unit, and then for example thrusters, basic thrusters consume 1 unit, and then the capacitor can store 1000 units. And all the weapons also have limited storage for heat and electricity, which is like one-way storage. They pull in enough electricity to be able to fire and then consume it when the weapon fires, and then they produce heat into their internal storage that can be then transferred out of the module. And the way to get rid of heat is to use radiators, or there is base. All the weapon modules also can dissipate the heat themselves, so with radiators you can increase the fire rate of your ship, or rather weapon modules, but pumping the heat from the weapons to the radiators takes significant amount of electricity. Okay, so let's make a basic ship design. So now I have added some extra stuff I don't need. This yellow and black icon is your center of mass, which is very important because of the physics-based movement. So you will basically want to have thrusters on all sides of your ship. so that it can accelerate forward, backward, and to the sides. And then you want to have some power generation and maybe some power storage in a small ship. It's not mandatory, but it can increase your performance basically. And then add some armor. Let's put some medium armor, and especially while placing armor you should take a look at where your center of mass is going to be, so that you can balance your ship. So in this case we want the center of mass, because we place these thrusters here, we want the center of mass about this center line. So let's remove these ones. Okay, so this would be pretty balanced, but having these here don't really make sense. So we could be maybe better off moving these. Currently the ship editor doesn't support moving modules. You can just add them or replace existing ones like this, or you can just drag to add multiple ones and then press delete to select. You can select, you can add and remove from selection like elsewhere in the game. And in the ship editor you also have undo and redo for these ship editing actions, like this. Also Control Z and Control Y, like they usually are in Windows software. Okay, so maybe something like this. Remove these ones. Well, that's not very balanced either way. Let's just put these here and add. Okay, so now we have a somewhat balanced design. These are not doing much. We could maybe add generators instead. The hull module is somewhat tough module that just provides connections, and it's cheaper than some of the others. Okay, so now we have basic fighter design with structure. We have shield generators here. The shields cover this area. We have weapons, we have thrusters, and so on. But now we still need to tell the game how to use these thrusters to move the ship around. So for this we need to go to module groups, open the module groups, and set the movement groups. This can be usually just done automatically by clicking here, which will assign the forward, backward, left, right, turn, clockwise, and turn counterclockwise. But you can also modify these. Why the forward and backward and so on groups have the core module as well is that if this group were unbalanced, like if I added one thruster here and then set the forward group to this, you would see that from the statistics, you would see that actually the core module is used because it can provide torque. So rotation torque. It can be used to counter the torque from this thruster. So it can be useful to place these reaction wheel modules onto groups that are just translation groups. But if we now update this, you see that this is actually not used because these are completely balanced across the center of mass. Here you can see that contribution efficiency is very high, so most of the thrust from this engine goes to actually moving the ship in the desired direction. But for example here it tries to use these thrusters for turning the ship, but the efficiency is extremely low. Only 2.3% of the generated thrust actually goes into rotation of the ship. And it is countered by this, but it's not really good. So let's remove these ones from the group and remove this. And then the contribution is 9%, so it's to the total effect of this group, it is contributing only 9%. So maybe that's better now. We don't need that much turning. We don't need this to turn so fast. Also, there is this allow automatic regroup. So if this is turned on, which is recommended, it will actually recalculate the groups whenever a module from the ship is lost, destroyed. So it is pretty common that the ships will actually revert to this automatic configuration anyway. But you can force this not to happen if your ship behaves poorly with automatic grouping. Also, here are some other stats, contribution, efficiency, and so on, that can be seen for the groups or activities covered. Change the coloring. Then when you think your design is pretty okay, or during the process, if you want, you can go to the design evaluation tab, where you get some tips about your design and its basic rating. So currently this says that movement is not very good, it's pretty slow. This in this case is because unbalanced movement group pair, where these thrusters are actually more powerful than the armored ones, which are much tougher. And this results in the situation that it cannot efficiently use these thrusters, because every movement, when you move forward, you need to then also deaccelerate with the opposing group. So it is affecting the performance. We could maybe fix this by adding modules here. So now we have these 4, and let's also update this. I need to first select the group, and then I can modify what modules are included in it and save. So now it is actually the opposite, that now the forward is stronger than the back. Now the forward thrusters are stronger than the back thrusters, so not an optimal solution, but these will probably get shot out during the battle, so it's probably okay. It will just be a bit slow. There is also ship statistics, which allows you to check different characteristics of the design, and also you can compare to any saved blueprint, or you can set the baseline to current, and then if you modify it, you can, then the baseline is one option in this list, and you can then compare to that. By default, the baseline is actually what the state in which the ship was when you entered this ship editing. Okay, so one more thing is setting weapon groups. These can be usually just automatically calculated. It will create one group for each type of weapon you have. And generic actions can be toggled on and off when in direct control mode. One use for this is enabling and disabling shields that take quite a lot of energy actually to run them, so it might be beneficial to sometimes shut them down. Actually, this design would probably be better if these shields were at the front, because then they can actually deflect more shots from the front. Shields in Battlefleet Engineer are not hard shields like they are usually in sci-fi, where the shield blocks shots at the edge, but instead they affect the shots and drain the energy when the projectile or plasma shot or beam travels through the shield. So the distance it travels through the shield affects the remaining energy when it hits your ship, basically. And they can also deflect projectiles coming from any direction, basically, but usually it's just the effect isn't so strong that it could usually deflect like direct perpendicular shots. Okay, and then there are actually also resource groups, which are way of prioritizing certain resource distribution. So into a resource group you can put resource generators, storage and consumers, and then within that group the distribution goes so that it will first try to distribute within the group. So these generators will generate electricity and then they will try to push it to the weapons in the group. And only if the weapons cannot take the electricity, then it will be shared with the rest of the ship. So you can then share, like prioritize that these front weapons will get the electricity from these generators, and it will be also sent to these storage. Save the group. You can have multiple groups. Another kind of advanced functionality is that there are module options. Only a couple of modules currently support this. The missile launcher and the plasma turret. But this is probably going to be expanded in the future. So select modules of the same type that support these options, and then you can set these options. So for the plasma weapons, there's shot size, which affects both the speed of the projectile and the energy it carries, and also the effective distance. Smaller, lower energy shots will dissipate faster, but they are also moving faster, so it's a little bit complicated relations. And for the missile launcher, there are different warhead types. Contact explosive the missile will try to collide with the ship and will explode when hitting it. Plasma projectile will explode at a set distance and create plasma projectiles that shoot towards the target, and kinetic projectile is the same. These projectiles are basically the same as these plasma vapor turrets and Gauss turrets fire. So those have their own uses. Plasma weapons basically are good against armor and generally destroying modules, but they have short range because the plasma dissipates, and also they are weak against shields, in a sense that shields have high effect on the plasma shots. They drain the energy of the shots, but this can be also used tactically, so that if you fire a lot of plasma shots into enemy shields, the shields will then draw lots of energy, and that can then kind of overload the electricity generation of the ship, so that it cannot fire back because all the power is going to the shields. So there are these kind of advanced tactics in the ship design as well. Okay, so when you are ready to save your ship design, you need to exit the ship editor by pressing this X or double clicking outside the ship, and then you get a listing of changes you have made, and then the blueprint, you can save the ship blueprint, which is the ship design. So usually you want to create a new design, so press save as and then new, which will give it a new ID, and then give it a name like tutorial fighter and your name. And if this ship design is based on another design, then you can set the parent ID and version, and then give it a description. If you want to override some existing blueprint, you can click on it here, modify the values, and press save. But now we are saving as a new design. Save. Okay, saved. And then total cost, ship value. Time cost is a placeholder that will have meaning when the campaign functionality is implemented. Like, it represents how long it will take to modify the ship. Okay, so let's make a few copies of this and then test it. It is also possible to save your designs in a fleet without saving the blueprint, but and then the fleet can be used in battles. But when you save the blueprints are then available for all the game modes, and they are also automatically used in random battles and so on. Okay, so these seem to be flying okay. Let's actually not just attack the enemies, but do some flight tests, or maybe it's easier to just do this again. Move these here, and okay, and then let's see how this manages to move. One important thing in design is also that the movement groups should not overlap if possible, so that one module is only used in one movement group, because if they do overlap, it kind of messes with the movement system, because it makes it so that it's not predictable. The kind of combined effects are not predictable because it's not known when the other movement groups will be used, because the movement groups are kind of controlled individually. And also the resource system, if your ship is starved for power, then that of course very much affects the movement as well. The thrusters generally and actuators in general, including the reaction wheels, have priority over other modules in resource use, so that the movement is always prioritized over shields and weapons and so on. And here we can then, using the module resources overlay, we can see how the ship behaves. Also, if you have enabled the debug overlay, you get some statistics about the resources over here in a textual form. So let's see what happens here when we turn on the weapons, or actually now it started shooting at enemies. So okay, we can see that very quickly we run into excess heat problem. We have more electricity generation than we can need basically, but the heat generation is a bottleneck. So the yellow ring here goes to the top, or full ring. Basically all the heat storage gets filled very quickly, and then it affects the fire rate of our weapons. So maybe we can go and add some radiators to this design, and probably no need to change any other settings. Design evaluation not very good, but ship this small usually isn't that great anyway. Okay, so now we are getting a power use problem, that these are consuming a lot of power, and if we are running all the thrusters, that also uses so much power that we might be power limited. So let's add some more generators and so on. Your ship, like this, your ship designs tend to get larger and larger because it's always a compromise. Okay, so now you see that we didn't save the blueprint. If we now rebuild this would actually revert. We would lose our changes, so that's not good. So for example like this, but we made a copy. But if we edit this and then save the blueprint, confirm, we can then actually rebuild these ones to match the new design. And let's have one of the old as well. And test battle again, and deployment, and let's see what happens. Let's speed up, and okay, and overlays, module resources. So let's see. Okay, now the heat doesn't seem to be too much of a problem, because these don't actually even get much heat into them, the radiators. The radiators work best when they are hot. So the hotter they are, the higher the output of or irradiated heat, basically. So not a perfect design. Now we don't have enough power for the shields to stay up. You can see that the shields are shrinking basically, and could be that so this is now because of the primary resource group or priority resource group. The weapons are getting power before the shields, and so then they are constantly drawing power, so the shields don't get enough power to keep up, and they are constantly shrinking, as you can see. And when they shrink, of course, the area gets smaller, and then they don't anymore shield your ship, basically. Okay, so the shields also are dynamic, and they are dynamic part of the resource system. So that's a different thing also in Battlefleet Engineer. So let's see actually if we can now press F1 or disable. Okay, so F6 should these are actually pretty okay, so not even myself, I don't even remember how to use the these groups, or there might be currently a bug with this, but you should be able to drop these shields basically, because we made that generic action group. I need to investigate that. Okay, so that's the basics and even some details of ship editing and the ship design. And one another trick is that you can hold the tab key to see some statistic, basically the module names and some information if it's actuator tied to your movement group. And of course, actually one important thing is that to rotate the module, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, you can press the Q and E keys. So this is how you get different rotations of the module. This design now looks much cooler, and so on. Okay, so this is it for that this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and remember to have fun.